Hello everyone, how are you doing? I hope that you are doing so very well. Today I'm here with my January wrap up and my February TBR. It's on time this month, aren't you proud of me? I'm proud of me. I don't really have anything else to say, so let's just get right to it. The first book I read, or rather finished this month, was Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows by J.K. Rowling. As most of you know, I put together Harry Christmas to You, and I didn't get to read all of the books, but I had started Deathly Hallows and I wanted to just finish out the series and have read the whole thing, so I finished it out at the very beginning of this month. I mean, it's Harry Potter and it's my favorite book of the series, so obviously 5 out of 5 stars. The second book I read this month was All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. I'd read 150-ish pages of this already, so I just finished it out for the second book of the month. It's about a blind girl that lives in Paris and a boy that lives in Germany, and it follows them through the start of the Second World War and during the Second World War, and then their paths collide. I really loved this story a lot. It's so wonderfully written. The narrative was beautiful. I would definitely recommend this book, especially if you're looking to read some literary or historical fiction. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. After All the Light, I wanted to pick up something a little bit more lighthearted, so I started Broken Hearts, Fences, and Other Things to Mend by Katie Finn, aka Morgan Matson. This is about a girl named Gemma who is basically forced to go back to the Hamptons after 5 years. She did some terrible stuff the last time she was there. You don't really know the details of it till further into the book, but you know she's gonna have to deal with the consequences of that when she gets there. This book was alright. I was expecting it to be just like a fluffy romance, but there was just a lot of catty girl stuff that I was like, ugh, can we not? But the stuff that wasn't that, I really liked. This is actually going to be a series. Don't know if I'll continue on with it. We'll see how I feel when the next book comes out. This ended up with a 3.5 out of 5 stars from me. The next book that I read was Rebel Belle by Rachel Hawkins. So many people have loved this book, but for some reason I was not expecting that much out of it, but it surprised me and I loved it so much. This is about a girl named Harper, and on the night of a school dance, she has these powers transferred to her by a dying janitor. She has no idea what the heck is happening, and she kills one of her teachers, and then she's like, what the heck is going on? And she just kind of has to figure out why she has these powers, what the deal is, and then just everything that happens after that. Harper was such a likable character. She was really smart, she had a lot of wit, and I just liked her a lot. Also, the southern accents were not overdone in this book, which I loved, because some books tend to go overboard. Cough, beautiful creatures, cough. This book got a 5 out of 5 stars from me. The next book that I read was This Song Will Save Your Life by Leela Sales. The main character, Elise, has tried to be popular and through a series of events basically became a lot less popular than she ever was before. To clear her head at night, she just goes on long walks and she stumbles across these people who take her into a club, and through that she discovers DJing, and the rest is history. I didn't really know much about this book going in besides the DJing aspect of it, but I ended up liking it so much. I loved the end of it, and I feel like Elise was very relatable to a lot of people that have just tried to be popular and it doesn't work. That's not what your goal should be in life. I will say, trigger warning for self-harm. It's not a huge part of it, but there is a bit of it in there, so steer clear of this book if that is going to trigger you. This book got a 4.5 out of 5 stars from me. Next, I read The Strange and Beautiful Sorrows of Ava Lavender by Leslie Walton. This book, guys, I loved this book so much. It's about a girl named Ava, but it's really a generational story. It starts with her grandma, then it goes to her mom, then it goes to her story, and you see how everything intertwines and interconnects. It was really whimsical, and there was a lot of magical realism, which added a really cool element. The story took a little bit to get into because I didn't know it wasn't going to just start with Ava, but once I got into it, it was beautiful. I loved seeing how all the generations influenced the next generation and how everything came together in the end. Everybody needs to read this book. Obviously, 5 out of 5 stars. Next, I read The Giver by Lois Lowry. If you don't know what The Giver is about, this boy named Jonas lives in a community, and when you're 11, you get assigned a job and you kind of do an apprenticeship and then you take over that job. He is chosen to be the receiver, and he receives all of the memories of the past, of the good, of the bad, of the hurt, of everything, so the community doesn't have to deal with it and it can maintain its utopian society. The last time I read this book, I was in middle school, and I really liked it then, and I really liked it this time around as well. 5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read was Across the Universe by Beth Revis. It's about a girl named Amy who is cryogenically frozen, and then she's accidentally woken on this ship that she was supposed to go to a different planet on. She's basically trying to figure out who she trusts, who she doesn't trust, and there's also a boy named Elder. I was kind of reading this with Dylan books. I kind kind of read the entire thing before he started and then he read it, so it was a bit of a fail of a buddy read, but I wanted to mention him anyway. I enjoyed this book, but I didn't love it. It was just kind of like, for me. I liked the world that Beth Revis created in this book. The sci-fi element was really cool, but the book kind of felt pointless. It might have just been because she was trying to set up the story for the later books, but it just didn't work. The insta-love was also a bit much for me, so just I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. Next, I read The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. I really enjoyed this book a lot. I actually did a review on it, so I'll link that right here as well as down below, and you can go check that out for my full thoughts. There's a whole non-spoilery part at the beginning, so don't worry about it if you haven't read it. But I will say it got a 4.5 out of 5 stars from me. Next up, I read Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. I read this with Raylene at Padfoot Prongs 07, and this is one of my favorite classics. Jane Eyre follows Jane from her childhood to her governorship in this rich household, and things happen. Don't want to spoil it for you, so you're just gonna have to go read it yourself. I love Jane a lot. She's super witty and super sassy. She doesn't let anybody control her. She like does what she wants, and she is awesome for that. Obviously this got a 5 out of 5 stars for me. The last book that I read this month was The Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson. I'm not gonna say much about this because I don't want to spoil the first book for you, but it basically continues following Vin and her friends. I gave this book a 4.5 out of 5 stars. So I read 11 books this month. That's pretty good, I think. 2 of them I didn't fully read this month, but we're not gonna talk about that. We're just gonna count them as 11. Now let's jump into the TBR. First up, I've got The Hero of Ages by Brandon Sanderson. I am currently reading this and I love it so far. It's wonderful. Still a continuation of the Mistborn trilogy. Can't really say more than that without spoiling the whole trilogy, so Hero of Ages. Next up, I've got Seraphina by Rachel Hartman. I'm reading this with Haley over at Hale's Hearts NYC. She is awesome. You should definitely go check her out. I'll link her channel down below. I started reading this book a while ago, couldn't get into it, so when I saw that Haley was reading it, I was like, girl, let's just do a buddy read so that I can read this book. I know this is about dragons and dragons who can like assume a human form and live with humans, but they're looked down upon, so a lot of people try to hide the fact that they're a dragon, and in the middle of that is Seraphina. That's really all I know. So dragons. Next up, I've got Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. I'm reading this with Jenny over at Jellify, who is also awesome. I'll link her channel down below. Definitely go check her out if you don't know who she is already. This is a classic, but I don't know anything about Wuthering Heights. I know that it ends terribly and all the people in it are terrible, but that's the extent of my knowledge. So I'm excited to read it. That poster just fell and I'm not gonna fix it. Sorry. Next up, I've got 2 books that were on my last month's TBR, but I didn't get to them, and that is The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman and The Girl Who Circumnavigated Fairyland in a Ship of Her Own Making by Catherine M. Valenti. Wow, that's a mouthful. Both of these books I've been wanting to read for a while. I've seen people rave about them and get excited about them, and I want to read them so I can know what the hype is about. And those are the only books I have planned this month. I want to leave it open, see if anything catches my eye later. There's also 2 read-alongs that I want to be a part of, but it depends on if I have books to read that fit the requirements. The first one is Read Soul Lit, and the second one is the Mental Illness Read-Along. I'll leave all the information for those down below, and you can go check them out, see if you want to participate. And that's it. Let me know what you read last month and what you're planning to read this month, and if you have any recommendations for Read Soul Lit or the Mental Illness Read-Along, please let me know down below so I can see if I have those books and I could read them. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye. I put together Rebel Bell by The next book that I read was, oh, okay. Next up, I've got 2, good. Next up, I've got 2 books. I'll leave all the information, wow, I cannot talk.